Hello and welcome back, adventurers. This is Captain TTRPG, and today we're talking about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Potions and scrolls crashed against the panels of the wooden floor. Liquid burst from shattered glass, slowly destroying the magical parchment. Those items, which did not meet such a fate, were hurriedly shoved into a sack held by a poorly dressed catfolk in ratty leathers. His accomplice, a gnome with a love for knives, held up the store clerk, threatening violence. The pair laughed as the clerk begged them to leave. Their raucous behavior ended abruptly as the door swung open. A hooded figure, covered in a dark cloak, but clearly heavily armored, stepped slowly through the opening. He held a massive hammer in one hand, with a shield on his back. He was much larger than either of the others, standing nearly 9 feet tall. A minotaur, hooves shattering the wooden floor. The thieving catfolk quickly hurled a vial at the behemoth, the vial shattering against his rigid form, causing a mild surge of electricity through his body. The dark figure reacted only with a single statement: "Kneel, vermin." The words echoed in the thief's mind, and he quickly knelt to avoid the pain, grabbing his head. The gnome acted quickly and moved behind the giant, stabbing him from behind, causing blood to flow as the blade found an opening in the armor beneath the cloak. With no warning, the hammer drifts through the air in an arc and finds the face of the rogue, throwing her into a nearby wall. She barely has a moment to look back before the beast's fingers wrap around her skull. The champion speaks an oath to his unholy deity, and the life is instantly drained from the struggling gnome. Her lifeless body slams against the hard floor as glass shatters, the catfolk escaping through the window at the far end of the shop. The clerk attempts to thank his massive savior, but gets only a grunt in response. Cold eyes peer into the clerk's soul before they once again are covered by a dark hood, and the minotaur leaves as quickly as he had entered. Welcome back, adventurers. Today we talk about the champion. These are bastions of heavy armor and holy or unholy gods. They are the devout servants of the various deities of this world. Champions are martial characters, and they can choose either dexterity or strength as their primary attribute. They get 10 hit points per level. They are proficient in martial weapons and all armor, one of our few heavy armor classes. This makes them amazing frontliners, but they still have options for great ranged combat. You are also trained in perception and reflex saves, but expert in will and fortitude saves right away, which you notice that in most martials cases, we actually start an expert in 3 things. I'm guessing the heavy armor training is the swap out here. The base stat being either strength or dex means you could be a great grappler, you can wield heavy melee weapons, you can use ranged weapons. There's just a lot of options for how you want to build your character, which is always great. The champion has 4 key level 1 features and terms that we need to discuss for you to understand kind of how the champion plays, as well as 4 features above level 1, and the first and probably most important for role-playing and thematics here at level 1 is your deity. You're going to choose a deity from the vast number that exists. I believe when I looked this up, it was 482 on Archives of Nethys. Lots. This gives you training in the deity's preferred skill, listed there again. You gain its anathema, but this could be up for discussion with the GM, so you don't want to take something that's going to lock you down. Make sure your GM's open to it. A lot of conversation with this class. Then you can or will become sanctified. Now this depends on the listing that your deity has. So sanctification means you're choosing to become holy or unholy if you're choosing it. Now in this case, if the deity has it listed as it has to be sanctified, you have to be, then you are sanctified, whether it's holy or unholy with that deity. Some say that you can be sanctified if you want to, therefore you can stay neutral or take the sanctification. Some are straight up neutral and don't have sanctification. So you have to look at all the details for the deity to know what that's going to be in your case. Now, if you do become sanctified, then it adds the holy or unholy trait, depending on your sanctification, to the strikes you make, which of course can have an effect right? There's creatures that are weak to holy or unholy. You're going to deal extra damage to them, triggering their weakness. But it also means that you are weak to other creatures as well, who can do extra harm to holy or unholy creatures. But we're still not done with the deity, because you're also going to get training in your deity's favored weapon. If, keep in mind, you're already trained with simple martial weapons. So, a few details here. If their favored weapon is a simple unarmed strike, that is a d4, the dice height is going to go up to a d6. If their weapon is uncommon, you get access to it, which most GMs probably let you have anyway, but you definitely have it now. And if it's an advanced weapon, you get to treat it as a martial weapon, which is huge because some advanced weapons, just the traits and die combo and all the stuff can be really, really strong. Finally, your aura from your deity extends from you 15 feet. So you always have this 15-foot aura going on, and anybody who is a follower of your deity will know that you are a servant of the deity if they're in your aura. Also, this is the aura that's used for your champion's reaction when we get there. So 15-foot aura, that's important. The second thing to talk about is your cause. There are 7 of these, and it is your subclass. It's going to give you a special reaction, and then it'll have related upgrades that happen depending on that reaction. It also opens up specific feats as you progress, and it does add edicts or anathema or both to your set that you might already have. Then we have devotion spells. These are focus spells, and you get to start with 1 at level 1. You're going to choose from Shields of the Spirit, which anybody can take despite, sanctification, not whatever. It's the neutral option, defensive. Or Lay on Hands if your deity allows a healing font, or Touch of the Void if they allow a harm font. And this is tied to the type of font that you would have if you were a cleric with that deity. Lay on Hands is a healing spell, and Touch of the Void is a damage spell, doing void damage. Our last level 1 feature is Shield Block. You probably know how this works. It's a general feat. You get the Shield Block general feat. So when you've got a shield raised, as a reaction, you can block with the shield. You're going to have some reactions as this class. Lots of reactions. So reaction economy is a thing for you. Anyway, I mentioned 4 higher level features. Let's talk about those. At level 3, we get Blessings of the Devoted. You're either going to boost a weapon, shield, or your movement. And the movement one comes with a slight buff to allies in your aura. So you're buffing one of those, and there are feats that relate to it later on. At 9, you're going to get your Relentless reaction. This is an upgrade to your champion's reaction that you get a level 1 from your cause. At level 11, you get the Exalted reaction improvement, which is also an improvement to your champion's reaction from your cause. And finally, at level 19, you get the Hero's Defiance Devotion spell for free. You just get it. This is a free action heal when you would otherwise fall unconscious, so it's a way to stay in combat. With the features out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into those causes. But first, what do we get for choosing a cause? Well, we get edicts and or anathema. Then you get your champion's reaction, which you get right away at level 1. You're going to get your relentless reaction upgrade at level 9, your exalted reaction upgrade at level 11, and then you're going to get feats that use this as a prerequisite at level 1, and then shared feats at 12 and 16 with various other causes, but they still require a prereq. I'm not going to dive into those feats here because we'll save that for the ranking video, and I'll just go over the different options here for your cause very quickly because I don't want to spend too much time. We have a ranking video for that. But going through them alphabetically, we have Desecration. This is an unholy option. There are no anathema, but the edicts are you subvert or corrupt everything in your path that is pure or holy, and you sow doubt amongst those holding ideals of purity and holiness. The reaction is Selfish Shield. You're going to gain resistance to an attack that damages you, which triggers it, and also deal extra damage to that creature until the end of your next turn. The level 9 Relentless upgrade is if your charisma modifier is +3 or higher, then you get an increased amount of resistance as part of your reaction. And finally, the Exalted is after using your reaction, enemies in the aura get a -1 to attack rolls to attack you until the start of your next turn. Then we have Grandeur. This is holy. The edicts are provide a shining example for others, enjoy and share the beauty around you, keep yourself tidy and well groomed. The anathema is you should not despoil yourself by associating with fiends and unholy forces. So Grandeur is probably not hanging out with the unholy options here on this list. Your reaction is Flash of Grandeur. When an ally is attacked and damaged by an enemy and both are in your aura, then you give the attacked ally resistance to that attack, and you affect the attacker with Revealing Light, which is going to make them dazzled, and it makes it hard for them to be concealed or invisible. And that's until the end of your next turn. The Relentless upgrade is that the attacker takes persistent spirit damage equal to your charisma modifier as well when you trigger the reaction. And finally, the Exalted is all other enemies in your aura become affected with Revealing Light for 1 round when you affect the attacker using the reaction. Next up, we have Iniquity. This is another unholy. The Edicts, you destroy that which offends you or stands in your way, take advantage of others, cheat, and steal. The Anathema is you should not bind yourself with the law other than what your deity requires. A reaction here is Destructive Vengeance. So when you take damage, you can take additional damage to yourself and then deal that additional damage to the attacker as well. Your attacks gain extra spirit damage until the end of your next turn against that creature that triggered your reaction. The Relentless upgrade is that the attacker that dealt damage to you takes persistent spirit damage equal to your charisma modifier when hit with the damage from your reaction. And the Exalted, all other enemies in the aura take half the damage that the triggering creature took. Then we have Justice, neither holy nor unholy here. Your edicts are you follow the law, respect legitimate authorities, or leadership. And the Anathema is you take advantage of another or cheat. Your reaction is Retributive Strike. You give an ally resistance to the damage that they take from an enemy who hits them or deals damage to them in the aura. And if you are within melee range of that attacker or whoever caused damage, then you can strike them as part of this reaction. The Relentless upgrade at level 9, the attacker takes persistent spirit damage equal to your charisma modifier when you hit them with the reactive strike. And the Exalted upgrade is each ally in the aura in melee range of the attacker can use their reaction to strike it, but all of them have a -5 penalty to the attack roll. Then we have Liberation, also not a sanctified one. Your edicts are you oppose slavery and tyranny, you fight for others' freedom, and to make their own decisions, respect choices others make for their own lives. The Anathema here is you force others or threaten someone to act in a certain way, engage in slavery or tyranny, so don't do those. The reaction is Liberating Step. If an ally was damaged by an enemy and both are in your aura, your ally gets resistance to the damage, and then if restrained, immobilized, grabbed, or paralyzed, it gets another save against that or a chance to escape that condition. Regardless, as long as it's not restrained, immobilized, grabbed, paralyzed, whatever, then it's going to get to step as a free action at the end of the reaction. The Relentless upgrade is that if somebody was restraining your ally, that restrainer is going to take spirit damage equal to your charisma modifier when you use the reaction. And the Exalted, you and all allies in the aura can step as a free action, and that you can do that as part of this reaction, even if the ally you used it for cannot step. So everybody's going to get to move a little bit. Next up, we have Obedience, also neither holy nor unholy. Your edicts is you enforce proper hierarchies, topple illegitimate hierarchies, and lead when you are the most suited to the task. Your Anathema is letting one who is lesser than you wield power over you or lead you. Your reaction is Iron Command. If you are damaged by an enemy in your aura, you force it to choose between either taking damage for daring to damage you or falling prone as a free action. You also deal extra damage to that creature until the end of your next turn. The Relentless upgrade at level 9, if the enemy refuses to kneel and therefore takes the damage, it also takes persistent damage equal to your charisma modifier. And the Exalted upgrade, all other enemies in the aura, when you use the reaction, either drop prone or take the minimum possible damage from the reaction that it would otherwise cause. And finally, we have Redemption. This is a holy option. Your edicts are try to redeem those who commit wicked deeds, show compassion to others regardless of their authority or station. And it is anathema to kill a sapient enemy without first offering a chance at redemption. Your reaction is Glimpse of Redemption. If an ally is damaged by an enemy in the aura, you force that enemy to choose between repenting, which negates all damage they just dealt to that ally, or refusing, and then the ally gets resistance to that damage, but the attacker also becomes enfeebled too until the end of its next turn. The Relentless upgrade at level 9 is if the enemy refuses and takes that damage, it also takes persistent spirit damage equal to your charisma modifier. And the Exalted upgrade at 11, if it refuses, then you can grant the resistance to yourself and all other allies in the aura to this damage that happened, but the resistance is dropped by 2. Not a big deal. The resistance is normally 2 plus your level. So this is still your level, has resistance to everybody in case everybody took the same source of damage. Okay, so a lot going on there. Lots of stuff already building off of your champion's reactions. That being said, let's dive into the feats and see what they do for us. Level 1 feats is really all I'm going to be able to talk about because there's a lot of them. We have Agile Shield Grip, level 1 action. You must have a shield wielded in one hand with either shield boss or spikes on it. You change your grip to turn the shield into a weapon, changing the damage to a d4, but you add the Agile trait. And then you use this again to switch back to the normal use of your shield. You've got Brilliant Flash, level 1, requires the Grandeur cause. So you notice each cause is going to have a level 1 feat here. When you use Flash of Grandeur, the reaction you got, the attacker is also off guard for 1 round. Defensive Advance, level 1, 2 actions. You raise your shield, then stride. If you end your movement in melee reach of an enemy, you strike. Nice action compression. Deity's Domain, level 1. You get the initial domain spell for one of your deity's preferred domains, and this is a devotion spell for you. Focus spell. Desperate Prayer, level 1. This is a free action. If you start your turn and have no focus points remaining, you gain 1 focus point, which you must use to cast a devotion spell this turn or it's lost, and you can only use this once per day. Everstand Stance, level 1 action and is a stance. You wield your shield in both hands, increasing damage die size of the spikes or shield boss, and increasing hardness by 2 when you shield block. Faithful Steed, level 1. You're going to gain a young animal companion as a mount. It and its attacks gain the holy or unholy trait if you are sanctified. Iron Repercussions, level 1 for the obedience cause. When the attacker refuses to obey and you deal damage to it, you can deal persistent mental damage to it instead of normal mental damage with your reaction. You have to decide whether you're doing persistent or not, though, before it decides whether or not to kneel. Then we have Nimble Reprisal. This is level 1 for the Justice cause. You can make your retributive strike from range with a ranged weapon, but still have to be within the aura along with the ally and the enemy. Or, if you're using a melee weapon, you can step if the enemy is within 5 feet of your melee range, such that a step would make it so you can still strike. And then, of course, you strike. Ongoing Selfishness. Level 1 for the Desecration cause. You gain half resistance to the initial resistance you gained to any other attacks during the rest of the attacker's turn. So if you're at the start of a turn and you react against the first strike, the next 2 you could have extra resistance for, well, more than 0 resistance for. Splinter Faith, level 1. You essentially change the way that you relate to your deity. You're going to get to choose 4 different domains you worship through, 3 of which have to be from your deity domain or their alternate domains, and 1 could be just from any domain, and as long as it's not anathema to your deity, of course. For a domain that isn't in your deity's list, if you have a focus spell from it, however, that version is less heightened. It doesn't heighten normally, it's 1 below normal heighten rank, because remember, focus spells always heighten with you. Unimpeded Step, level 1, Liberation cause. Your ally's movement from the reaction lets the ally move into difficult terrain, greater difficult terrain, narrow surfaces, and uneven ground, which are normally things you can't step into, and this applies to all allies if they've got the Exalted benefit. Vicious Vengeance, level 1 for Iniquity. You gain +1 damage per damage die to the damage you deal to your attacker with the reaction. Not your strikes afterward, but the initial damage you deal with the reaction. Then there's Weight of Guilt. This is level 1, Redemption Cause. When you would make a creature enfeebled 2, you can instead choose to make it stupefied 2. And expand Aura. We're now above level 1. This is level 6. 1 action. You expand your aura to 30 feet until the start of your next turn. However, at level 10, this automatically increases so that it lasts for 1 minute rather than 1 round. And at level 16, this is just on until you dismiss it. Then we have Divine Wall, level 12. This requires you wielding a shield. All adjacent spaces to you are difficult terrain for your enemies. They're not going to be stepping out of those. Then we have Swift Retribution. This is level 18. You are quickened on your turn after using your champion's reaction. It can be used to either get closer to the triggering enemy or striking it. You're probably going to be using that reaction a lot. Okay, got through feats, got through our subclasses. Let's jump into the class breakdown graph. Champions can be built in a variety of different ways. Sword and board, ranged, thrown, two-hander, charisma's focused on spells. Honestly, it's kind of crazy how many options you have. Even within your own build, though, you have a lot of options of what to do on your turn. You're going to have focus spells. You could take even more focus spells as you go. You can focus on protecting, attacking, ranged backups for your melee attacks. Yeah, you don't have the number of options a full caster would have, but each turn could feel pretty unique depending on what you go with. You may even have options on the best use of your reaction, which a lot of classes can't say. So we're starting with a solid 4. Your single target damage can be fantastic. You are strength-based if you want to be, and no one said you have to go sword and board. Also, your reaction can, depending on the way you go, apply even more damage. If you go ranged, your damage will be lower, but still on par with other ranged characters, and possibly higher depending on which cause you go with and the reactions you've got available to you. Honestly, I'm going to give this a 4 just because it doesn't hit the levels of like Barbarian and Rogue, but it's a very high 4. Then we got AoE damage, and this is not your thing. There are some focus spells that can offer you something in this area, and we've got some champion reactions, really mostly one that offers you, at least at the exalted level, the ability to do some AoE damage, but it's pretty minimal. But because there's at least something here and there, I'll give it a 2, but it's a weak 2. This is a heavy support class on the other hand. Defending allies is just a pretty major part, unless you go with a selfish build, but there are feats to buff as well. There's healing you can do, you take damage from them, and then there's the potential of the focus spells and everything you can do with those, with all the different domains. Even if you don't focus on support, you'll likely still be pretty good at it, and even with the possibility of being selfish, you've certainly got the option to be the exact opposite of that, so this is a solid 5 from me. Control isn't really your strongest suit, but you do have much better control options than your AoE options. There are control reactions that can be really solid. Some effects to your aura that you can grab from feats later on can make it difficult for enemies to move away. And of course, as always, you can have the focus spell options that are going to provide some level of control as well. So yeah, you're not the greatest controller, but it's still a 3. You can still do a good job of control. And in the right setup with the right party, you might even be stronger than that. This is a 10 hit point class that gets up to legendary with heavy armor. It can easily buff its survivability with lots of feats and spells. This is maybe the most survivable class in the game, so this isn't just the easiest 5 to give out. Champion builds can go in just so many different directions. I'm just going to list 4 thoughts I've got here, but there's more than this. If you're going to go that sword and board, heavy armor style defender, you might want to go strength, con. You're going to still want your charisma lifted up a bit. I would suggest some wisdom, and then you pretty much dump dex and int because you're going to go heavy armor in that case. If you're going to go with a two-hander and you're going to focus more on damage, you might even drop con and raise up that charisma, get a little bit more out of your damage that you can do from charisma, return damage on enemies with your reaction. Also, you might want to lean into something like intimidation, and I'd still keep that wisdom up there. For range style with crossbows, guns, things like that, start with dex instead of strength. I would keep that charisma high because hopefully you're not in a case where you're going to get hit a lot. And then con and wisdom, you can pretty much drop strength because again, range, you're not going to get much or anything out of it. And intelligence, I keep at the bottom here. And finally, a melee finesse build, maybe just even a face build. That dex and charisma combo coming back with constitution, but swapping strength for that wisdom just to get a little extra damage onto your finesse strikes. There are just a ton of straightforward options for your first build if you just want to try it out. I'm going to go ahead and use Justice here as my example because I think it's fairly easy to understand how it works. There's no effects to keep track of really. Level 1, I'm just going to go ahead and take a Bastard Sword. This allows you to go from one-handed to two-handed if you want to. Then you're going to take a Breastplate and Steel Shield. This would normally require us to have +1 dex to get the most out of the breastplate, but I imagine with this build, as soon as you can, you'd put on some heavy armor. We just won't have it here at level 1. Your attributes will be +4 in strength, +3 con, +1 in charisma, and +1 in wisdom. And the feat, I would say I would grab Nimble Reprisal. This is the one that works directly for you as a justice cause and allows you to step before striking if that'll get you in striking range for your reactive strike as part of the reaction you have, or to use a ranged weapon as part of it, which of course we didn't go the ranged version here. So let's go ahead and provide a combat example to show off champion gameplay. The sheriff of the small town of Fairhaven caught wind of a clan of kobolds coming on a raid. Sheriff Sela and her deputy Fumbus are set for confrontation as the creatures approach. The sheriff gives the kobolds the option to vacate and keep this civil, but unfortunately they choose violence. Everyone rolls initiative. The sheriff manages to roll high and goes first. She rushes up to the strongest looking of the kobolds in the hopes of scaring the others off. As she rushes up and strikes with a sword in her right hand, she lands the strike, dealing 9 damage. She then raises her shield, increasing her AC to 19. The smaller and angrier kobold then rushes to the far side of the sheriff and strikes twice. The first barely manages to bypass her defenses, dealing 3 damage. The second she was prepared for, and it misses completely. This gives the slender crossbow-wielding kobold to step up and fire, keeping some distance from the sheriff, as he fires and strikes Fumbus for 7 damage. In a heartbeat, Sela reacts, using her champion's reaction because both the kobold and Fumbus are within her aura. This gives Fumbus resist 3 to the damage, reducing it to only 4. Then, because a step would get her within melee range of the crossbow kobold, she steps and strikes. She can only do this because she took the Nimble Reprisal feat. It is a critical hit, and Sela deals 16 damage, knocking the kobold down. Fumbus, having taken a bolt to the shoulder, pulls out a bomb and hurls it at the injured kobold, striking it and dealing 4 electricity damage, nearly taking it out. Fumbus takes 1 more throw but misses, dealing just 1 splash damage. Fumbus then moved but stayed within 15 feet of Sela. The bulky kobold finally gets to attack and quickly moves into flanking range of the sheriff. She then strikes the sheriff with a solid pick, critically hitting and dealing 10 damage. She then steps back for safety's sake. This was not enough to keep the kobold safe, however, as Sela steps up and swings, cutting the creature down, using her final action to protect Fumbus. The final kobold, not being the brightest, decides to try and at least take out the alchemist deputy. Striding with 1 action and swinging with the second, he hits the deputy, causing 4 damage. Thanks to another round going by, though, Sela can use her reaction once again, reducing the damage taken by Fumbus to only 1, and then taking a swing against the kobold, effectively ending the poorly planned assault on the town, just as the sun begins to set over the horizon. Champions having high either strength or dex means that it's really easy to take various martial multi-class archetypes. There's great choices. I mean, I'm going to list it again, but as always, you can go with something like an Exemplar. That's a fantastic choice. You can go with something like the Guardian. You should probably be able to take that in a lot of cases. You're going to go with that ranged style. You're going to go with a dex build. Perhaps you're looking at something more like a rogue, or if you're going to go out guns, possibly a gunslinger. You also could potentially have some decent charisma going on here, and perhaps you really want to lean into taking up a few more spells. Well, we have a ton of charisma caster options. I think you might be really well off going with something like sorcerer or psychic. I think there's some great possibilities with that. All in all, there's just so many options depending on your build. You could almost go with, well, not any of them, but lots of the multi-class archetypes and make something very strong because your core is already so strong. My final words here for the GMs out there: make sure that you are working with your players, especially around edicts and anathema, so that they don't accidentally, lose their abilities or something because they did something that you thought went against their edicts or triggered their anathema. So just don't want to see that happen. And that's about it. What do you think? Are you excited about the champion class? You want to see what you can do with the various builds? You want to go ahead and make your gunslinger, shield wielding, justice champion? Have at it. But make sure to talk about it in the comments below. And as always, adventure on.